America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with the oath of office to our new student member, Maddie Nielsen.
Okay. All right, Maddie, so the oath of office, if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Maddie Nielsen,
I, Maddie Nielsen,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation
or for purpose of evasion,
or for purpose of evasion,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of the office of the School Board of School District 15 of Beatrice, Nebraska,
perform the duties of the office of the School Board of School District Number 15 of Beatrice, Nebraska,
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear that I do not advocate,
And I do further swear that I do not advocate,
nor am I a member of any political party
nor am I a member of any political party
or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
or of this state by force or violence,
or of this state by force or violence,
and that during such time I am in this position,
and that during such time as I am in this position,
I will not advocate nor become a member
I will not advocate nor become a member
of any political party or organization
of any political party or organization
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
or of this state by force or violence.
or of this state by force or violence.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations. Welcome to the board. You can have a seat up there, and we'll have you sign that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, welcome Maddie. Next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda as presented, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on August 14th, 2023, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for August 2023, approval of Committee of the Whole minutes for August 24th, 2023, approval of minutes from special meeting August 24th, 2023, approval of resignation of Melissa Ventry, and approval of option students. And also excuse the absence of Board Member Lisa Pieper.
Thank you, Doris. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Jason, do you have a treasurer's report?
I do. So the conclusion of the month of August brings us to the end of the 22-23 budget cycle. We're now complete with all 12 months. As is always the case in August, and we try to prepare you for this in July, but we pay for our biggest expenses at the end of the budget cycle, like the van that we purchased, whatever expenses we know we might have during the next budget cycle, which includes workman's comp liability insurance, and then we also pay for supplies for the upcoming year as well at the end of August. So the month of August is typically an expensive month. We try to do this as much as possible because when we can pay for those things in advance, it allows us to start with a fresh set of budget authority for the coming school year. So that's why we do that. It's also the month we make the transfers to the depreciation fund and the transfers to the activity budgets as well. So the month of August bills were $1,345,363. Payroll was $1,464,272, which brought total expenses to $2,809,636. In typical August fashion, revenue is very slim, so we only saw $886,645 of revenue. And as of August 31st, we had received 90.04% of district taxes. Auditors are scheduled for September 27th and 28th. So all of these numbers that I'm giving you and have given you throughout the course of the year, auditors will be on site, public auditors, the 27th and 28th, and we'll have finalized numbers for all of those accounts related to the budget through the auditing process in mid-October. So that process takes at least a good month, if not the end of October, before it's complete. Sometimes they make adjustments to some of the coding that we have and put it in a different account or maybe in a different line item. So it can change a little bit, but typically not a whole lot. As of now, our numbers show the following. We received 97.75% of our total revenue budget for the year, and we expended 97.71% of our operating budget. So again, we did not exceed our operating budget. However, this left us approximately 2.29% underspent of budget authority. So we ended the year almost right where we should be on track, just a little bit under what our budget authority was and our revenue was. So as I said, all this is our preliminary numbers from our standpoint, but when auditors come in, they'll make the.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes.
That's Kerr.
Yeah, let's show the votes one more time, please. Okay, motion passes. Next up, outstanding recognition, employee of the month, Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, I am going to tonight turn it over to Mrs. Replogle. So I'm going to ask her to come up and provide a little bit of a presentation for us.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Vicki Detter, who thinks she's here to help with the presentation on our new addition to our best possible summer where we added the ACP children. Did you bring your copy? You don't need to bring that. Come here, Vicki, you don't need to bring that.
I was gonna say.
This weekend, I sent her a copy of I sent her a copy of the write-up that we did for all the classes for ACP and asked her to make sure she studied it, so that if I forgot anything, she'd be able, so I trust you studied it, didn't you?
Yeah, sure. I
So-
love Bethel for it.
You did? Well, bless your heart. Okay, well, this is Mrs. Vicki Detter, and she is the September Employee of the Month. The individual that originally nominated Vicki noted this: "I cannot imagine a more deserving employee than Mrs. Detter. She has helped me in my transition as a first-year teacher more than she knows. Not only does she do a fantastic job of helping my ACP boys, she goes above and beyond to help all students in the classroom. Vicki works extra time riding the bus, lunch duty, just stepping in and helping wherever she is needed. Having Mrs. Detter on my team makes teaching such a joy. As a team player, she really ramps up the environment around her. Vicki Detter is a true rocket star, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks that." That's just the beginning. This past summer, Mrs. Detter, along with 2 other BPS team members, determined they were going to provide a summer experience for our ACP students. In previous years, our ACP students would have to join our best possible summer experience and not have the courses geared toward their needs. Vicki helped guide her team in preparing 8 half-day-long hands-on experiences. The students in her class studied nature, including a visit to the Homestead National Monument. They explored music by dancing and making instruments, and they even put on a concert. They explored space and designed their own solar system. Something Smells Wonderful was a huge success as the students baked cookies and cakes and got to decorate their own creation. Students went on a dinosaur adventure and made fossils, and they even took the principal on a tour of their dinosaur museum. Life in the Circus was a big hit, and the students put on a circus of their own. The summer closed out with lions and tigers and bears, oh my, as the children learned about wildlife through the exploration of their habitats. And what better way to end the best possible summer than a full-day trip to the Lincoln Children's Zoo? With Vicki firmly at the helm, side by side with her team, this truly was the best possible summer for the students in the ACP program. 3 words you will never hear from Vicki are, no, and I can't. Vicki has been a tremendous asset to BPS for many years. She always puts student needs first and is never afraid of a challenge. Vicki is first to volunteer and willing to assist others. She is a dependable and dedicated employee with a bright, beautiful smile on her face. All staff members are so thankful that Vicki has chosen to spend her days working with the students at Paddock Lane. We would like to congratulate you, Vicki. You are September's Employee of the Month. And I think Mr. Trustee has some things for you.
And then,
She might want one. Okay, are you ready?
Thank you.
All right, well, congratulations again, Vicki. Next up, Business Friend of the Month, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so our business friend of the month called this afternoon and could not make the meeting. They had a situation come up they had to deal with, so we would like to go ahead and recognize Jason Zellner and the family for our business friend of the month. Recently, Zellner Ford led the drive to help supply our students with much needed back-to-school supplies. There were over $5,000 worth of supplies given to each school in the district to be utilized to supply students who came to school without school supplies. It doesn't stop there. Zellner Ford has been supporting Beatrice Public Schools, our students, and the Beatrice Education Foundation since they relocated in 2020. Jason and his family have consistently been there to sponsor camp shirts and activities when we needed sponsorship for a variety of events. Zellner Ford has routinely donated to the Lady Mary Fund in order to help principals help students who need additional food, clothing, or other personal needs. They have donated to the Educational Fund Golf Tournament in the form of cash prizes and supplies to run the tournament. And when Beatrice Middle School had a last day cancellation for the career fair, Zellner Ford stepped up on a day's notice and educated our students on business marketing. Without a doubt, one of the most generous and thoughtful sponsorships that Zellner Ford provides every year is the Para-Educator of the Year Award. Through the foundation that awards a nominated para-educator with a $1,000 surprise presentation in front of the entire school they work at. This is a truly amazing, emotional, and well-deserved surprise for one of our para-educators in the district. So we appreciate Zellner Ford for all they do in helping support our students and our staff, and gladly recognize them as the Business Friend of the Month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Next up, the information section of the meeting. Start with student update. Maddie.
The preschool is off to an amazing start. The staff and students are working hard to learn the daily routines and procedures. The 15th, the preschool will have its first family event, which is the football tailgate at the House of Orange. Elementary schools, Lincoln and Stoddard are back in full swing and kids seem to be enjoying being back. Lincoln and Stoddard have seen a rise in EL students going from 33 kids to 64 kids. Lincoln and Stoddard have also scheduled their field trips and fundraisers are underway with a combined PTO from Paddock. Paddock has welcomed back many new families and many returners with a busy start to the school year. Paddock's MAP testing was wrapped up last week and their fall field trips have been scheduled. School Picture Day has also been held. First quarter conferences are coming up. The Beatrice Middle School has sorted all of their houses and have begun their year-long house competition. All of the 6th graders and new students are settling in nicely. Fall sports have kicked off with approximately 100 student athletes between cross-country, football, and volleyball. The Beatrice Middle School has also started a mini mart, just like the high school. The mini mart is in room 210 of the middle school and assists students and families in filling the gaps of food insecurities. The high school started the year with the student council doing a fundraiser where every senior has the opportunity to paint their own permanent parking spot for the year. SRP training was also held last week, and fall sports are off to a good start. Parent-teacher conferences are being held September 19th through the 21st. Fine Arts is preparing for the musical Mary Poppins, which is happening the 23rd through the 25th of September. The Color Guard and marching band's theme this year is Somnus, meaning sleep. Homecoming is October 6th, and the Student Council has declared the Spirit Days already.
All right, thanks, Maddie. Next up, board reports, committee of the whole. Doris.
The Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting was held on August 24th, 2023. The first topic was random drug testing for students involved in extracurricular activities. Athletic Director Gus Brown informed the board that he recently surveyed conference schools and some other area schools on whether or not their districts utilize drug testing. He shared that approximately 10 students are tested each month and the testing expense is around $5,000 for a school year. He shared that very few positive tests result from the district's policy and current testing. He added that if the board wants to keep the policy, then it probably needs to be revised some. Sherry and Daniel Shonka presented information on the ALACAP insurance program that the district recently joined. Mr. Alexander shared that Rhonda Pieper has developed a list of items that the district is no longer using when proposed being sold. And then the meeting ended with a budget preview by Mr. Alexander, and he presented historical information and also current information to the board. That ends my report.
Thank you, Doris. Next up, Stan's report, Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, so basically, the only information to update you on with Stance right now is we have our first organizational meeting coming up Wednesday, September 20th. So we will be getting together as a leadership team, of which I'm the president this year. So we'll have that organizational meeting on the 20th, I believe. Yes, September 20th. So that's coming up quickly. And we'll start off by introducing all the new superintendents to Stance and kind of outlining what our agendas are for the year and get going. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next is public forum comment section. There is nobody that submitted any information to speak tonight, so we will move on to the discussion portion. First up is the 2023-24 budget. Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so because you've seen this once, this is kind of a condensed version of what you saw before. We'll go through it all again at the budget hearing next Tuesday night, the 19th. But we did decide to slim this down a little bit just to get you through this. First slide up is, remember, all this is proposed until you as the Board of Education finalize it on the 19th. So we do attend the joint public hearing on the 18th. We'll be there. First slide is the Tax Equity Educational Opportunity Support Act. Again, this is information that relates to the TIOSA formula and shows you the needs minus resources equals state aid. Because we're an equalized school district, we still receive equalization aid. So this year with the foundation aid, remember that's a $1,500 per student found to receive state aid. This is just a basic history of the state aid payments to Beatrice Public Schools from 2002 to current year 2023-24. Again, you can see the blue arrow indicating the year that really things started to change legislatively and the recognition became prevalent that state aid could be decreased and the shift could go to valuations as valuations started to increase, which is shown on the next slide. In the land valuation history graph of Beatrice Public Schools. Same arrow, indicative of about the same time frame. I think it's 1 year later because that's when we started to see valuations go up. So the direct correlation is that as state aid decreased, valuations increased, And a lot of that is because of the local effort rate that is shown under the TIOSA formula in the beginning slide. I think first it's important for us to review quickly what we see as projected future increases in expenditures. You've seen this before, but we know that in the coming 23-24 school year and 24-25 school year, these are budget increases that we will see. $770,000 in the 23-24 school year will be allocated to wage increases. This is 85 to 90% of our budget. So, and in the wage war that we're in with hiring for people, we know this will continue to go up. Additional bus routes next year will cost us in the neighborhood of $16,000 per year as the new contract transitions over. Current curriculum software updates, right now we're estimating that at an approximately $33,000. That includes all of our Infinite Campus, all of our software and computer updates that we have to make throughout the course of the year. If next year the MAP assessment, we've been told, will be no longer paid for by the Department of Education, that will become the responsibility of every district to pay. That's an additional $35,000. So right now, the only thing that I've included in the total at the bottom is the $33,000 for curriculum software updates. Textbook updates, we know that we have a kindergarten through 8th grade math update that will have to take place sometime this year. That will cost us approximately $5,000 or $500,000, and then K-5 ELA for the following year will be another $500,000. I've only included the one-time $500,000 for budget increases this year. District repairs, and these are everything from HVAC to roofing to parking lots to water heaters to fencing at the athletic park, all those things that come along with keeping up the facilities. Estimated $75,000 to $100,000 per year. The number included in the total is $75,000 at this point. We did purchase a van this year, so that's $40,000 to $50,000. Once we get the van in, that number will be all finalized. It just some of the options are still, we're still waiting to get those all finalized, but we've paid $40,000 now. When the van comes in, we'll pay the remainder. We also know that we're going to have to replace the field turf at the House of Orange, which is approximately a $600,000 estimated cost. So approximately now we know that $2,034,000 will be increased in the 23-24 budget process. And then we also will have planning for 24-25 that we have to look at. The state this year implemented LB 243, which basically, in trying to explain that, I've come up with the general fund and building fund floor to ceiling concept. Basically, the state said our minimum growth amount was $15,526,835. The maximum amount of tax requests that we could make would be $16,961,684 if we access the full 6% that we've talked about. My proposal for what I'm asking the board to approve will be a $15,959,909 more than what the state said our full tax or our minimum tax request could be. So you can see the ceiling at 16 million, the floor at 15. We're asking for just a bit more to cover our expenses for the year with the additional funding that we're going to see from the state. The special budget hearing notice, and keep in mind that the budget is separate from the tax hearing. This is what the special budget hearing notice will look like. Essentially, it outlines every fund and compares it to 21-22, 22-23, 23-24. Down at the bottom probably is the most important statement. Now everything is being broken out by bond purposes for property taxes, which is basically for us the QC PUF that we have to pay in 2025. And then you have your non-bond purposes, which are the general fund and the building fund. So you can see that we're asking for $15,959,999, which is the previous slide that you saw. That's a total of $16,313,534. So that's on the basis of our budget. Again, you've seen this slide before, but on the expenditure side of the budget, in accordance with the LC2 document, the NDE certified $27,343,790. Prior used authority was $533,537, which brought us to $27,877,327. When we factor in our $5.3 million sped budget, that brings us to the LC2 NDE certified $33,177,327 mark. How does that balance on the revenue side? Basically, our beginning cash balance is $8,505,987. That's an estimated number, as well as the other revenues, state and federal, at $5,431,445. The only number that we truly know is the state aid number, which is $5,455,047 as certified by the NDE. Those other numbers are estimates based on history and what we are projected to receive from state and federal sources. The only other number that we have that, again, is not a full, we can't fully promise it because it just depends on when taxes come in, is the $13,784,848 of property taxes for the general fund only that this is talking about, just the general fund. So that brings our balance from the expenditure side to the revenue side of $33,177,327. So that's how those two balance for the general fund. Valuations were received August 21st. This is the valuation statement from the county assessor. Our valuations total $1,560,643,546, which is 13% higher than a year ago. So valuations went up 13%. What you'll see is valuations went up and our tax rate is going down. We'll show you that here in a minute. But the basic valuation breakouts, essentially 54.4% of our valuation comes from urban, which is the largest classification. Agriculture is the next largest at 35.2%, centrally assessed at 5.3%, and then personal property at 5.2%. And again, that comes from the county assessor as well. Just a quick look at our general fund and building fund tax levy history. So as we transition now out of budget talk into the tax levy history, you'll see that our levy has traditionally been as high as $1.17 going clear back to 2001, 2002 before there was a levy cap, to 2016-17 where the $1.05 levy cap was introduced after a small stint at $1.10. So you can see that our general fund levy has been at $1 and a building fund levy have been at $1.05 over the past several years. This year, this is what the special hearing notice looks like. So at the top, in the top circle, you can see the 13% increase of property valuations from a year ago. The reason that's important is because we don't control those. We do not control property valuations, the county assessor does, which is controlled by the state assessor. So for everybody out there listening, keep that in mind. Just a quick update of where we are numbers-wise. General fund purpose, we're asking $13,784,848, which is an 88-cent 0.883280 general fund request. That's a reduction of a 3% tax rate. It's an increase of operating budget in 8%, which is certified from the NDE because the needs side of our formula. They see our needs going up, so they increase our budget, operating budget, and change in our tax rate is 3% less. We can do that because of the valuation increase. The special building fund will be $2,175,151, which is right at the 13.9 cents. This is a 0% change in tax rate because it's where we were at last year, but it's a 10% reduction in operating budget. Finally, the QC Puff will be $353,535, which is 0.022653 or 2.2 cents. This is a 20% change in tax rate and a 19% operating budget. We're starting to increase that operating budget in the QC Puff in preparation for that payment in 2025. So that's why that number is and preparing for that in 2 budget cycles, showing it in 2 budget cycles. So, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, we are at $16,313,534 of total tax requests. That's $1,45308, which is a 3% reduction in tax rate. It's a 3-cent reduction in tax rate. And it's a 6% increase in operating budget. So that's how that hearing notice shakes out. This is all the same information you just looked at. It's just in a different format, so I don't think I need to spend a great deal of time covering. Overall, you will see the mill levy tax rate reduction is down 0.0325551. One thing worthy of pointing out is that in our tax request, there is a 1% collection fee that we pay to the county treasurer that counts as our tax request, but it actually goes to the county treasurer. So in the world of policy making and state statute, that's one thing that we would really like to see as school districts is we don't get assessed that on our tax rate. The general fund, basically, you can see the difference from 22-23 to 23-24, and the building fund you can see as and there as well the difference of that in at the tax hearing as required by law. But that's the nuts and bolts of it. You've seen it once, so if you have questions, feel free to shoot. If not, we can move on.
Any other questions for Jason? Okay, thank you. Next up, we'll move on to the action portion. So first up is discuss, consider, and take action on policy 5103.1, random drug testing for students involved in extracurricular activities. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 table until the October meeting, policy 5103.1, random drug testing for students involved in extracurricular activities.
Okay, thank you, Doris. We have a motion to table this discussion until October. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Brandon. Do we want to discuss any more on this, Jason, or just wait till October?
I think probably we'll just wait until October. We have the September committee of the whole meeting. What I would encourage is if there's any questions that you have as board members, please feel free to reach out to myself. I would highly encourage reaching out to Mr. Brown, athletic director. He might have more details involved, but I would just encourage if you have questions, reach out so we can, if there are things that we have to dig for, we can dig for.
Okay.
But we can talk about it at the September committee of the whole and then have it as an action item if the board feels it's ready for.
I just felt like there were some unanswered questions. I just like more information.
Okay.
I think before we make a decision, I don't have a feeling one way or the other, but I felt like there were some missing pieces in the presentation.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, can I have your votes please on the tabling of this discussion until October? Okay, motion passes. Next up, approval of contract with Sarah Roos, orientation and mobility independent contractor for the 23-24 school year. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the contract with Sarah Roos, orientation and mobility independent contractor for the 2023-24 school year.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Mrs. Hoekstra.
So this is a contract for orientation and mobility services for a student that has visual impairments. We have another similar contract with NCEC BVI out of Nebraska City. Sarah Roos previously worked for NCEC BVI, but now she's actually at UNL providing courses for students to get their visual impairment endorsement to be an orientation mobility instructor. And she's a little more cost effective for us than all the services through NCEC BVI because it's a large agency, so they have more costs. So Sarah has agreed to continue providing some of our O&M services. I wish she would provide more, but she's a busy lady, so we would like to continue our contract with her for this year.
Okay, any questions? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? Motion passes. Next up, approve list of property to sell per policy 3090. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the list of property to sell as presented.
Okay, thank you, Doris. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, so as presented at the Cal meeting, and we do have the items up there for you to view again, but as presented at the Cal meeting, we have a list of items that we'd like to open up for public bid on and auction and sell them. These are just items that are no longer in use by our maintenance department or our travel fleets, as you can see why with some of the pictures you see up there, but they may serve a purpose for someone else out there in the general public. So in alignment with policy 3090 and Nebraska state statute, which requires that anything that's purchased with public funds be put up for sale to the public, we must allow some form of bidding since the items were paid for with public funds. So the board must support selling these items by 2/3 majority vote, which is actually in the state statute. So I thought we might be able to make this a little easier for you as we start to transition into the new building, but probably what we'll have to do is bring you a listing and sampling pictures of desks and chairs and so on and so forth that we'll be selling in the future. We will compile larger lists for you, but this is the list we have now.
Okay, any questions, comments? Seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. Next up, approval of the Interlocal Cooperation Act Agreement and Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Beatrice. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the Interlocal Cooperation Act Agreement and Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Beatrice for school resource officers.
Okay, thank you, Doris. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, so basically, it's time for us to update the 4-year contract with the City of Beatrice that we have under the Interlocal Agreement Act. So that's one thing that has to be approved. But then the memorandum of understanding that also partners with that interlocal act agreement, both of those need to be approved tonight, just so we can continue to provide school resource officers at our high school and middle school. There is question about what we will be doing with our elementary school as we transition and open that up, but we just thought at this time it's more important to just get this under agreement, and then as we make those decisions moving forward, we'll be discussing that in the future.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. Okay, next up, Administrator's Report. We'll start off with assessment. Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, thank you. So, as we are moving into test scores being released, they have not been released yet at this point in time, they are still embargoed. I wanted to just give an update about kind of where we are with the assessment system, what we utilize, what the purpose is, and just give you a little bit of background so that you understand what we do as a district. So you have a handout in front of you. I am not going to read through everything, I'm just going to highlight a few of the things. But you can see that it really is about systematic collection, review, and use of information. And it's meant to improve student learning. That's the sole purpose of assessment, is to help us improve student learning. However, there are other purposes, as we know. For example, we have to meet state and federal accountability requirements. That is one of the biggest purposes of our assessment system. However, there are other things that we use it for, so it just inform instructional decisions, and those might be daily instructional decisions or minute-by-minute instructional decisions, because there's different types of assessments that we utilize. It also helps us in making sure that we have grades for students. It also helps us in giving parents feedback, giving the students feedback about where they are, and kind of giving the district feedback, the school feedback as to what do we need to improve on, what do we need to look at, what do we need to evaluate. So, but ultimately, as you can see at the very bottom, it's to enhance learning for all students. And that really is our goal, is to find a way to, although we have to meet state and federal requirements, How do we make sure that we keep student learning in the forefront? How do we make sure that anything we do helps us improve student learning? So, as you can see when we turn the page, you might say, oh my gosh, look at all the assessments that are given in the district. There are a few, but they all have a purpose and they all do different things. And so, as you look at it, preschool, we have our Teaching Strategies Gold. And that is observation-based assessment, fall, winter, and spring. And I will tell you, it helps our teachers guide the instruction. It helps our teachers figure out where each child is and figure out where each child needs to go. And there's a lot to celebrate at the end of the year when we have looked at how many kids, how many 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds have started meeting that benchmark or making it onto benchmark. So that is a fantastic assessment that we utilize that guides what our teachers do in the classroom. As we look at elementary and middle school, the MAP assessment, and Jason brought up the MAP assessment earlier, so this is our measures of academic progress. This is given 2 to 3 times a year, and we give this K through 11. We utilize the MAP assessment. We give it in math, reading, language, and science, and most of our schools have finished with the MAP assessment for the fall term, and then we will give it in the winter. Grades 3 through 8 and 11th grade will probably not see the MAP assessment in the spring because we then give the state summative assessment. So they will not maybe see it there. We have given it to our kindergartners because it is a part of, and there are some kindergarten teachers that look at me and say, really, should we be giving it to kindergartners? But when we look at the Reading Improvement Act, which is a legislative bill, we have to have an assessment that helps us monitor where students are and helps us determine at that kindergarten level, right away in the fall, do they need to be on a reading improvement plan or not? This is one of the assessments utilized to help us determine that. The next assessment that is utilized to help us determine that is the MAP Fluency. So this really is a universal screener. It focuses on phonics, phonemic awareness, language comprehension, oral reading rate. It focuses on the foundation, the principles of reading. It helps us truly dive into where students are with their reading skills and how they're developing as we move forward. It also flags students who need the dyslexia screener. So as we know, that's another bill that has been passed too. So this might be the assessment that we will utilize, that we will say, okay, here's how many kids have been flagged for that dyslexia screener. We gave the dyslexia screener, here's the results. So that is where it will hopefully serve that dual purpose so that we will not have to end up purchasing another assessment, is our goal. And then we get to the NSCAS, the Nebraska Student-Centered Assessment System, the NSCAS Growth Assessment. This is our state summative. Last year, we decided that we were going to give this fall, winter, and spring because the state has adjusted the assessment system, so rather than one time, we would give it multiple times. Well, the feedback we were receiving from teachers was that it was not usable. The data that they received was, you would have to spend hours and hours and hours combing through the data, and I know that Chuck sat through a PLC where we had a Wednesday afternoon, we had teachers trying to comb through data and we were lost. And so at that point in time, I sent out a survey to all teachers at the end of the year saying, okay, let's talk about MAP growth, let's talk about NSCAS growth. Where are we? What is the most user-friendly? What is the most valuable for student learning and student success? And so there was a lot of feedback about how MAP growth really truly helps teachers a lot more than NSCAS growth. So we have made this shift back and we will just administer the NSCAS growth in the spring, and that is the only time that we will administer it at this point in time unless we are told by the state that we have to administer it fall and winter. So at this point in time we have moved back, and I will tell you there are many other districts across the state that have made that choice as well. We are not the only ones. And that is given 3 through 8, they take the English Language Arts assessment and math, and then 5 and 8, they take the science assessment. The NSCAS alternate assessment are given to students with cognitive limitations, and so these would be students that would be in our alternate curriculum programs that may need a life skills curriculum rather than that grade level curriculum. So that is where the NSCAS alternate assessment is utilized. The special ed team, so the IEP team, makes the determination that the NSCAS alternate is the best assessment for that child. There is a protocol that they have to go through, that the state expects them to go through in order for a child to take that assessment. As we move on to the next page, our English learners have to take they have to take the ELPA. And the ELPA screener is the first test that we will give an EL student. We have to administer it within the first 30 or 10 days, the first 10 days that they move into our district. It has to be administered by. That gives us an idea of where they are, an idea of, do we need to place them into an EL program, or are they okay in the regular classroom? The interesting thing about the state that we have worked with is, even if they are given an EL screener in another state, if it is not the ELPA, we have to administer the ELPA here as well. So they can be in an EL program in another state, but when they come to our district, if they do not have the ELPA assessment, we have to administer it. And then ELPA 21 is given in February to all of our EL students to measure their proficiency with the English language, and they look at reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and understanding English. So once a student is proficient in that, then they move out of the EL program, and then they are monitored for the next 4 years. At the high school, we have our AP exams, our advanced placement exams, and those align right with AP courses. So those are rigorous courses. If a student scores a 3 or higher on the AP exam, the nice thing is that they tend to get that course waived in college. They get college credit for that course. So that is the benefit of taking an AP exam after you've been through the rigor of the AP course. We administer the pre-ACT to our 10th grade students, and this is just the English, reading, math, and science. There is no writing on the pre-ACT, and that really does help us guide to figure out where the students are. I do know that a couple of years ago, we noticed that our language arts score was not where we needed it. We had an average of 14 on the pre-ACT, and we thought, hold on here, there's something we have to do. And so during that, during the next, collaborative time that our teachers had, they started looking at, okay, where do we add those language arts pieces? How do we make sure that we get those language arts pieces? What is ACT looking at? And making sure our average actually went up quite substantially in that language arts, which was fantastic. And you'll see those scores soon. Then in 11th grade, all students, unless they are alternate assessment, take the ACT with writing. So they have English, reading, math, science, and writing, and that is the state summative assessment for the state of Nebraska. We also know that the ACT is utilized for scholarships and for your college entrance exam. So that kind of helps. However, there are colleges that are tending to go away from the ACT, that they don't even look at the ACT score. They would rather look at your GPA. So I don't know if the state is ever going to reconsider the ACT for every child. But yeah, at this point in time, we know the ACT is the test that we have to give, and it is the test that we give. And then the NSCAS alternate is also given at the 11th grade. So this would be the alternate assessment for our kiddos that need that extra life skill support. And all levels, we know that we give course assessments, so we give formative and summative assessments, and our formative assessments are the assessments that guide our daily instruction, and they're the ones that teachers are using to make decisions as to, okay, maybe I need to stop, reteach, or oh, I can accelerate because students are moving faster than I thought they would. Summative assessments are really, they sum up the learning, and they tell us where they are at the end of the unit, at the end of a concept, at the end of the priority standards, where they are at the end of that point. So what's new this year? There are a couple things that have changed, and we are truly kind of excited about this. NSCAS Growth 3 through 8. Previous years, there were times that I would sit and maybe pull out my hair because I would look at a child that was in the 90th percentile and they would be meeting expectations. They would not be exceeding expectations. My thought is a child that's at the 90th percentile should be exceeding expectations, because that is a truly, I mean, that's a very high percentile. A child that is at the 75th percentile might not be meeting expectations, they would be below expectations. Again, I will tell you, as curriculum directors across the state, we had great concerns with where the cut scores were placed, because when parents would call and say, okay, so you're telling me my child's at the 75th percentile, that's way above average, the average being the 50th. They aren't proficient. How, you know, and as curriculum directors, we would have to sit there and try to find answers and try to support where the state was. It was very hard to support that. So the state had their proficiency set at absolutely proficient. So a child had to be absolutely proficient. That is different than just being proficient. And so the state went through this summer, and we had some amazing teachers that sat on that group and worked on that group with language arts, with math, with science, and looked at the cut scores. They reevaluated it, and they said, okay, let's look at what is proficiency. And so they moved the cut scores to be more realistic about, you are proficient. And so it was nice to see them move and shift from the whole absolutely proficient to you're proficient. So that will be a nice, more realistic viewpoint of where we truly are, because I will say, I do not, when I go into classrooms and when I work with students and when I look at our students, there are not just 30% of our students that are proficient in reading. There are a lot more. And so we're excited because it gives us a more realistic, plus it truly shows what our teachers and what our students are capable of and what they can do. And the last point I already talked about, the shift in MAP growth from NSCAS growth. Any questions about assessment?
Becky, when do 10th graders take the pre-ACT? Do they take it in the spring, same time that the ACT is administered?
Yep, so they will take it the same day that the ACT is administered to juniors.
I've got a couple of comments.
Yep.
First of all, I was really pleased to see that you got more flexibility on that, because I was concerned.
Yes, I would agree.
That was going. And yeah, some of these are no-brainers. The AP, the ACT, things like that. I've been on the receiving end with the AP and got to actually set the scores that would work for computer science, that kind of thing. What about SATs?
I think at the high school, if you want to take the SAT, you can work with your counselor to take that. Because the majority of our students go to a Midwest college, we do not administer the SAT in our building, but I will find out as to what maybe centers. There might be some centers in Lincoln that help administer the SAT, so getting students signed up for that. Absolutely, our counselors do that.
Yeah, and I can see that at UNL, there aren't that many students that do the SAT.
Yeah.
So try to make that connection.
Yep.
The other question that I would have is, there's a whole bunch of this testing, a lot of tests that you're doing different times. I'd like to get kind of a feel of what's required, what's optional, where there are alternatives, what kind of flexibilities you have with these things, and the judgment on the usefulness, the feedback that you get, and what are the dollar costs of these. Now, I can't answer all that tonight, but
Exactly.
these are questions that I would pose.
Perfect. And when you look at cost, a lot of them are provided by the state, as Jason brought up. A lot of these are provided by the state, which is fantastic. Now, there are some other costs to, like the AP, and most of the time the child pays for that assessment. But with the rest of these, most of this is covered by the state. And so that is fantastic. However, if the state does come back and say that they are not going to cover that MAP assessment, that is a huge cost. A huge cost. When we paid for it earlier, it was right around $23,000, but that was probably about 8 years ago that we paid for it last. So in the 8 years, the assessment cost has gone up substantially. So that is a concern for a lot of Nebraska school districts.
Great, yeah, and I'd like continuing interest in
Uh-huh.
learning more.
Perfect.
Any other questions for Jackie?
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Dr. Nielsen, for putting this together. This is the first of a mini-series, if you will, of discussions about testing coming your way, just to help educate you all about the testing that takes place. And I would agree with Chuck's question about and Dr. Nielsen's answer about the funding from the state. If that MAP test funding goes away, MAP assessment funding goes away, and we have to cover that, that's what we affectionately refer to as an unfunded mandate, because it is required that we provide a growth assessment in state statute for our students and for our teachers in our district. And currently it's paid for, but if it goes away, it will become an unfunded mandate.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
Dr.
Next up, Superintendent Report, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so just a few things to quickly update you on. First of all, a building update. We had a OAC meeting a couple weeks ago, got to walk the building site again, and it's coming along very nicely. Since the rain has stopped, we've been able to get a little more work done. The well field to the northwest corner of the building should be done by the end of September. That's the hope. That will include about somewhere between, I can't remember what the exact number is, but between 35 to 40 wells for the geothermal well system that will be responsible for heating and cooling the building throughout the course of the year. So that's exciting to see, for me to see come to fruition just by the end of September. That means it'll all be in place before the winter season hits, so that's a good thing. The interior slabs were to be finished poured this week, so that's a good thing. It's finally dry enough on the inside that they could hopefully get those slabs poured this week, and then the exterior paving will also start this week. So you'll start to see the paving go in the front, or the front main entry area on the south loop. The interior metal framing is complete on the second level, and crews are moving extremely fast and hope to finish up level 1 in the coming 2 weeks. So that means the entire building will have been framed, which is exciting. The building plan is to start having the drywall in the preschool areas done this week. So the windows are in and the drywall is, they worked over the weekend, and hopefully we'll have that area done at the end of this week, and then start in level 2, the upper level next week. And then finally, I already told you the exterior paving is starting this week as well. So that's just kind of a quick building update. We have another OAC meeting again next Tuesday, so we'll have another update for you. The second thing I just wanted to talk to you about a little bit was in conjunction with our strategic plan goal number 3, hiring and recruiting high quality staff. We sent Ms. Cordray Hookstra and Mrs. Timmerman, we sent them to Kearney for a UNK recruiting visit a week ago. We learned a lot, and we also learned.
We were the winners.
Yeah, our district had the most check-ins of student teachers out there, or people interested in jobs, educators interested in jobs. So thank you very much to those two for going and helping us recruit. We did make some great contacts and have 3 candidates that we're hoping to be able to secure, that we know will be replacing or in need of. So appreciate their time and efforts going out there. In regards to some other hiring and recruiting staff information, just some basic numbers for you. And again, remember, these change on a day-to-day basis, because in classified staff area, we have people that sometimes start the job and then realize maybe it wasn't meant for them, so they go. But we do have good news to report in the parent educator positions for the district. We have approximately 6 to 9 openings district-wide. But this does not include the positions that we have added this year because of the increased number of special education students that we've seen come in and have required extra sets of hands. So in that area, we're coming along nicely. Again, that's one of those areas where some people get into it and realize maybe it's not for them and jump back out. So we're always working with that. In the maintenance department, hats off to Rhonda, who's done a terrific job of recruiting. We started with 3 positions open, or 4 positions open at the end of the year. We're down to 1. So we have 1 opening, and most of those have now completed their CDL requirements to be able to drive, so that's terrific as well. We'll be outfitted with bus drivers as long as everyone stays on board. In food service, this has probably been the most challenging area. We still have 2 current openings, 1 full-time and 1 part-time. And as far as certificated staff, we had 1 open business teaching position that still remains open. We have been able to cover the school work portion of that with the SCC employee that agreed to help do that through the course of the year. So we've got part of that covered, but just not the complete thing. Long and short of it is, this is a huge improvement from where we started out the last year in comparison from year to year. So we're excited about that. Just some upcoming reminders of upcoming NASB school board opportunities for development. The area membership meeting, Wednesday the 27th, so we'll send out information about leave time and all that coming up here in the next couple weeks. The labor relations meeting, October 4th and 5th. For those of you that are on negotiations, this is always a great opportunity to learn more a little bit about that process. And then the state convention, I think Danielle left you a little note tonight about are you attending and what exactly do you want her to get you registered for, so if you could please finalize that. The last thing I will leave us with is just a very warm welcome to Maddie Nielsen as our student representative for the year. We appreciate you being willing to take on that challenge and commit to 1 Monday night a month with us. And we hope it's a learning experience for you and appreciate you being here. That's all I have. Oh, yeah, and Eric will talk to you real quick about the evaluation.
Yeah, so real quick, we did get an email, Jason and I did, from the State School Board Association asking if we wanted to continue with the superintendent evaluation as we've done in the past couple of years. I guess my opinion is they do a great job of running that. It's not a manual process. Just any comments from anybody? Does anybody oppose not continuing to utilize their evaluation again for this coming period, which will be, typically it's in, I think November, December is when they send out the evaluation. Again, it's an online survey that's sent out to the board members, and then they compile all the data and present reports to us. Okay, good. So, seeing no comments around that, we'll endorse.
I don't know if they did, but make sure that the questions they ask match his job description. I mean, oftentimes they ask a lot of curriculum questions that are not a part of his job. And then they're hard to answer.
Yeah, I think it's a standard assessment.
For what we pay, can't they unstandardize it a little bit?
I will ask her tomorrow when I email her back and see if there's some of those we can change.
And we can look at that. Yeah, we'll find out. Okay, any other questions for Jason? All right, notification of next meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be October 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. The budget and property tax hearings will be on September 19th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the Administration Building. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be September 28th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. An agenda for the meeting shall be kept continually current, is readily available for public inspection at the Superintendent's office during normal business hours. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll get that one to Brandon. Can I have your votes, please? And we are adjourned.